Welcome, everybody. This is the third video in this series, 10 Myths Blocking Special Education Systems Change, or Special Education Improvement. I think I changed the name. This one is myth number 8, the easy job myth. And I have the perfect guest for this particular video, and that is Deanna Lough. I'm very excited to have Deanna with me. And we were just chatting before we got on. We've known each other 17 years. What did you say?
17 years.
17
So,
years.
yeah, my
Yeah.
son was just a couple of months old when you and I met first time.
And he just graduated high school. So, wow, that doesn't seem possible. But when I first met you, you were an instructional coach, and then you were an
Yes.
English teacher. In fact, a star English teacher. I love the kind of English teacher. And then you were an administrative intern,
Mhm.
and a couple visits to being a special educator because you're dually certified. And now you're a special educator. So perfect that you've looked at this from all those different points of view. What else do you want to tell folks about your background?
So somewhere in all of that, I was also a literacy coach. So that was in there too. Um, I have worked in 4 different school districts. The district I'm currently in is actually the district I started in when I started teaching. So I'm very happy to be back where I am. I kind of came to this role it wasn't intentional. Like I didn't seek out becoming a special education teacher, but through some professional changes, this is the role that I ended up in, and I love it. I feel like it's a great way to kind of maximize all these skill sets that I had, and I kept trying to fulfill these like needs I had professionally in a lot of other ways, and I came to find out that I can actually do that by being a special education teacher. And so I am a special education ELA teacher. I co teach specifically with somebody who is ELA and who's somebody who's also in his first year of teaching and going through alternate routes of certification. So what's ended up happening is that I've been able to help support him and learn this role. And it is very different for me than it was when I was a special education teacher many years ago. So he's done a lot of learning. I've done a lot of learning, and it's just kind of become this really nice mesh. I didn't think I'd ever teach middle school. I especially didn't think I'd be teaching seventh grade. But here I am, and it just so happens that I actually love it. Like I leave every day feeling a good kind of tired, and I don't feel I don't feel at this point in the year like completely burnout. When we hit June as educators, like we're ready for the year to be over, and I'm very grateful that my summer's coming, but I feel like I still have so much more to learn and so much more to give. And so I really do think that I can just I'm wrapping up year 22, and I feel like I could just continue on in this role until I'm really ready to retire. But as I see from you, Amy, you've never really retired. So this I may end up in a very similar situation to you one day.
Yeah, I mean, when you have this burning desire to make things better for people, then you just can't stop yourself. So, okay, so I want to dig into it. Why is this myth called the easy job myth? So I think there's a problem, and I want to tell a little story that where I think this problem really came to light. I've known it for a while because I had been, like you, I started as an English teacher and then I was a special ed teacher and all the rest of it, college professor. But when I was the special ed grad director, I interviewed every teacher candidate that came into my program. And I would say, why do you want to be a special educator? Most of them put their hand on their heart and they looked toward the ceiling like they had this dream. And they talked about their little brother who didn't get blah, blah, blah. Or they talked about working at a summer camp with those kids. Or they talked about when they were a student, there was this other kid, or they all had a story, or they're already teachers and their favorite kids were the ones that had disabilities. And they were like, they had this passion. But there was one guy, I'm going to call him Brian, who came in and I asked the typical question, why do you want to be a special educator? And Brian said, well, my dad said it would be a good thing for me because I'm pretty lazy. And he said the special ed teachers have the easiest job in the school. They basically get to sit in the back of the room and do nothing. And that would be a good job for me because I'd get a teacher's paycheck and I'd get to sit in the back of the room and it would be a breeze. And I thought, oh boy, are you in for a surprise? But I thought his father, who is a teacher, told Brian, this is what special ed teachers do. And I
Mhm.
got thinking, how many other teachers think that's what special ed teachers do?
Right.
And, like they may miss class because they're in some meeting or other. So I thought, is this a problem? And I see it over and over. Tell us, what experiences out of all those experiences you've had, I'm sure you've bumped into this, people thinking special ed teacher's job is easier.
Working as a special education teacher, I have been in a couple of situations where somebody didn't understand what my responsibilities were with my job. And if I was sitting down while class was going on and I was sitting down for a few minutes, it might be because I really needed to get a parent email out, or I really needed to make sure that I was, updating benchmarks, or I really need to make sure that I was, getting an IEP done. Because people didn't understand my role, there was this idea that, oh, if she's sitting down here, she must just be playing on the computer or searching around for something, shopping on Amazon. I don't know, like all the misconception. And then working with my co-teacher as somebody who is a brand new teacher who's doing alternate routes to certification, he also didn't understand what my role was. And I didn't think to have that conversation with him at the beginning of the year so that when he started to get really overwhelmed and stressed out, I didn't think that I needed to necessarily have that conversation. And it ended up becoming a little bit contentious for that reason. Thankfully, we have got great support in the building where somebody was able to kind of help mediate that situation a little bit. But without that, that misconception, I believe, just continues to perpetuate. And I've been in situations where I've been the regular education teacher and the special education teacher with me was, I hate to use the word allowed, but that's kind of what my thinking is, where they were allowed to basically be a glorified aide. And so they have gone through all these years of doing this thing and being very comfortable, and nobody had the conversation. And so, because those misconceptions never got cleared up, whenever I would say, oh, can you do this? They felt so unbelievably uncomfortable and didn't want to take on doing other things in the classroom.
I
So
want to
it's
I want to summarize what you just said because I think you made four really valuable points that I want people to take away. First is the barrier of talking to between two co-teachers. Like often I've had teachers say to me, well, I don't know what to do with that special educator who's coming into my room, but she's another teacher. I shouldn't be telling her what to do. Or I'm the special educator. There are things that I want to do, but that's the teacher. It's their room. There's this barrier of we're not supposed to talk. We're supposed to just know what to do. And if you can't start the conversations, you're stuck. So that's the first thing that you said. The second thing that you said is the value of an administrator or an outside person, the instructional coach, somebody being the mediator between are you both clear about the roles? And we do
right.
this in our consulting, but there's always to have somebody else be the mediator between the two to be able to name what that is. The third is we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what that other person's responsibility is, what they're doing when they're not in the room, what they're doing when they're sitting at their computer. We don't know. And
Hmm.
we make assumptions without checking them out. This is human.
Yes.
And if it's not challenged and talked about, then
Hmm.
we're not going to be able to do anything. And then the
And
fourth thing, the fourth thing, and then like you continue, the fourth thing that you said that was really valuable is the administrative support you need to do your job as a special educator, like keeping
yeah,
the benchmark data, like making sure the IEP is drafted, like communicating with a parent, with all of that. That's above and beyond what a general ed teacher has to do. Yes, they have to communicate with parents, but not at the same level, not with the legal repercussions.
right.
And if the administrator doesn't allow for that within the schedule, then it really is a barrier for the special educator being effective. Okay, so
Yeah.
what else?
I think you touched on a lot of that. And I think that in terms of like my role, since I haven't been a special education teacher in a long time, there were a lot of things that I had to either unlearn or relearn in this process. And that includes like the whole state of Delaware switching over to a new, grade reporting system. And that's now where we're putting in our IEP information. And so you add in those layers and that's impacting everybody, but with a special education teacher you have to understand how to input information into the grade book, and you also have to use the same system in order to input your IEP information.
Let me back up by saying I was in a school this past week, and our task for 2 days was just to listen to teachers, special ed teachers, general ed teachers. We talked to the school psychologists, the administrators, what's happening with inclusion in your building. Why do you think you're stuck? That there's such an achievement gap between the students with and without. And I kept hearing everybody said, yes, it needs to improve, and that person needs to change. The general ed, the special ed teachers need to do a better job of this. The special educator said the general ed teachers need to do a better job with this. The administrator said, if only our teachers would. And then there were teachers who said, if only the administrators, everybody's pointing the finger somewhere else. And the truth is, there's only one person you can help improve, and that's yourself. And if you don't have agency to make change yourself,
Mhm.
the system's going to stay as it is.
So I have a friend who is a principal at an elementary school in the state, and one of the reasons why his school is making such incredible gains is because everybody understands that there is a level of accountability. They are accountable. Yes, they're accountable to the students. They're accountable to the students' families, but they're also accountable to each other. And
Oh,
that's where, like, when we don't feel accountable to other people, I feel like it allows us to say, not my job. It's that person's job. And I know I'm getting sixth graders coming in the following year. And I know that I am then sending my current seventh graders on to eighth grade. I can't, I can't feel good about what I do if I go, oh, well, that's going to be their problem to deal with. I know I'm accountable to lots of people in multiple ways. And so that's where I think sometimes it fails within a system. And it's because people don't feel accountable to each other the way that they feel accountable to an individual student.
I love that so much. So let's get to the solution. So we've really laid out the problem well, but I think the solution is informing yourself, being accountable to find out what is the job description of the special educator or the general educator related to collaborating together and in producing an inclusive environment for all students. So by the way, we have a handout that we're going to be attaching of what is the role of a general and a special educator. And I think that might be, we'd love to have feedback on this handout, by the way. So for everybody to be accountable to do that, but also for administrators to set it up so that teachers can collaborate, that the special educator can fully do the job and the general educator can do their parts of the job. Is there anything you want to add about what an administrator might do to support teachers?
So one of the things that I wanted to point out is the resource that you're making available is actually a really great way to facilitate that conversation that administrators can have at the beginning of the year with both their regular education and special education teacher. It gives everybody an opportunity to kind of look and go, oh, okay, here are some ways in which you're going to navigate things through the classroom, or how do you typically maneuver through the classroom? Are you comfortable? And so it gives you a way to help grow yourself a little bit more. And when you're setting goals for yourself with your administrator at the beginning of the year, that's going to be a way that you can kind of have something to reference as you set those goals for yourself.
So, as you hear, this is not only to inform yourself, but it's a conversation starter with co-teachers. It's a tool that you can use for growing your own skills. And there you go. This was myth number 8, that special ed is an easy job. It is not an easy job, and it's a fulfilling job. It's a job that I love, and I hear that you love it as well. Thank you so much again for chatting with me. And we will, of course, have to stay in touch for another 17 years.
Thank you for having me.